Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Drunk Max 3, the first six-pack audio commentary. Saw that you see the robot head logo there was black and white, all intentional, because this movie is mostly black and white. My name is Chris Cortez. You see my name pop up here several times, as well as my surname because of my family involved in the movie. But I was the writer, director, editor, and one of the actors in Drunk Max 3, the first six pack, the conclusion to the Drunk Max trilogy. Um, the whole genesis of this idea it started all the way back in 2014 with the Experiment trilogy. I was getting back into films, and I invented these three movies I wanted to make that would experiment me as my skills as a filmmaker, whatever you want to call it. Just push me to other bounds I've never done before. And while I was waiting to make the first movie, Bachelor Party, I had like a window of time to do something else creative, and so I decided to start working on the script for the second film in the Experiment trilogy, which was Drunk Max, the original film, called Drunk Movie at the time. So I wrote it, and I was very pleased with it. And after writing it, while I was making Bachelor Party, I just kept thinking of Drunk Max like the whole time. And I kept coming up with all of these ideas of what we could do and stuff. And a lot of those ideas became Drunk Max 2. And when I started making Drunk Max 2, what happened was I really felt that I needed to kind of know where Max came from. So I didn't write anything, but I came up with essentially an idea for like an origin of where he came from. And that idea seemed like such a cool idea. I decided, you know what, screw it. It's a trilogy. Let's make a third film, which became Drunk Max 3, a prequel. So here, see that close up? This is really interesting. We shot that close up in my balcony to get better lighting, and then everything else here was shot at the park across from our house, which was really fun. That was another thing. I really wanted to shoot outside more because Max 1 and 2 was all indoor, and so that was important for me to go outside and stuff like that. Um, Another thing that's really important to me, though this is a prequel, it is the third film, and we put a number 3 at the end of the title. And the idea is that you should watch these movies in the order of the number. So you should see the first, the second, and then the third, because it kind of works structurally like that as a trilogy. And so that's why the voiceover that you're hearing is present day Max. That's Max post Max 2 telling the story. To who? We don't know. I mean, for all we know, he's talking to himself. He doesn't make movie pitches about his life anymore, so he just talks to himself. But that was an idea, and it was something that I always intended to do. Um, so there's a lot of stuff that was cut here. Originally, we had this whole sequence of Max taking stuff out of a bag, and it became like a gag because he would, yeah, like the lightsaber. This is a pickup shot. That's actually my hand doubling for my wife's hand. It just looked so slender in that shot. I thought I could get away with it. Um, but yeah, we had him taking out objects and all this stuff, and it just slowed down the movie to a halt. So we cut this because we really wanted Max to meet Sylvia and everyone real quick. Speaking of Sylvia, she's about to pop up here. I want to talk about Sylvia because this character evolved from so many ideas. Originally, Sylvia was always intended to be played by my sister, and originally, what we were gonna do was I kind of imagined her looking like a combination of Emperor Palpatine and I wanted her to be a combination of three things: Emperor Palpatine from specifically Return of the Jedi, the character in Avengers, the one that talks to Loki throughout the whole movie, that's the right hand man of Thanos. And then also just a kind elderly grandmother. I wanted her look and her voice to kind of evoke that those characters or those thoughts, and it became very clear that budgetarily there was no fucking way I was going to be able um, to do that, to create this character. So I decided, you know what? Let's just use a puppet. And so I found this delightful puppet, and we used one of my son's blankets, baby blankets, to create a cloak. And I dare say it worked. And so I puppeteered the character um, throughout the whole movie. And oh, so here, really quick, here we see the beginnings of Max. First, we see him as this, dirty uh, wanderer, vagabond, and then here, he gets the haircut that we're more, traditionally we recognize him with, and his beard is all trimmed up nicely, how it is in the other films. But he's still not quite Max yet, and that's a running theme throughout the film. Um, but Sylvia ended up just being a puppet that I puppeteered throughout the whole film, and my sister would later partially provide the voice, and I'll get to that story in a second. But here we also have Broomhilda. Broomhilda was written. When I told my wife I was gonna make a trilogy and I wanted her to be in every single one of them, I remember that I told her, so in the first movie you only have one scene, and she's like, okay, I'm cool with that, and I'm like, but in the second scene you're actually very much involved, and she's like, ugh, and I said, but don't worry, when we make the third movie, you're very much involved in the movie, but you have like no lines of dialogue, and she was like, okay. And actually, I really have to give high praise for my wife because we had to delay this movie. It was originally going to come out a lot earlier, um, in 2017, I think, because we were going to start filming in 2016 and then release in 2017. And we ended up having to delay the movie because my wife and I became pregnant and we had a baby. And I give so much credit to my wife because she bounced back from her pregnancy so quickly. I told her take as much time as you need, and when you're ready, we could start doing this. And if I recall correctly, we started filming this movie December of 2016, I think, and filmed all the way through 2017, and then released it in the summer, right after I got diagnosed with cancer, which was pretty nuts. So this was the movie I made. Like I fully made this movie, and then it was fully edited, and I was about to release it, and then it became a low-key release because I had a lot of important things I had to do. So I kind of had a not premiere party and then released this movie out there. But yeah, it all kind of happened like that because of a lot of things that happen in our life, new life, and scary thing of life. But thankfully, I'm okay, so everything's fine. Um, I beat that cancer, and now here we are. I get to record a commentary that you fine folk can listen to. Um, but so the voice of Sylvia, this is still all Lena, my sister. She did a great job. What happened was, when I was doing the puppeteering, I acted Sylvia with a temporary voice. And so when my sister came in, essentially she was trying to match my style of speaking and acting to her style of speaking and acting, which is not compatible. And so what I had put a filter over her voice when editing, and we did like a 3 hour recording session, and it became extremely clear that it just was not. It was going to take us an extremely long time to do it. And my sister was a trooper. She really kept working so hard to get it. And she was doing a fine job, but logistically it just didn't make sense to continue doing that. So I learned something. I learned that, probably recording her voice first and having it as a playback so I can mimic her voice when puppeteering would make a lot more sense than doing it the other way around. So you see, you learn something. You're always learning something with all movies. You're never not a student filmmaker. Um, so I took over voicing the character, and I tried to mimic my sister's voice the best I can. And I added the same filters that were there, so it became kind of a combination. I give my sister full credit. Oh, here I am yawning. Oh God, I hate yawning on commentaries. Here I am. I give my sister full credit for the role though, because it was really her character from the beginning to end. And she does play the human side of the character at 2 points of the movie. So, you know, I think it all worked out. Um, and my wife, oh, she's again the unsung hero. She did a fantastic job with this Broomhilda. It was really cool making a whole trilogy with her, and doing all that. Um, and yeah, we again. I tried to do so many jokes with this character. Oh, here we shot this in my sister's room. We needed an extra room, and so I thought, well, let's just shoot it in my sister's room because it's bigger, it has more space, we could really move around and have fun with things. And when I did the closet montage later, that was a lot of fun to do. And plus, her lighting was so great in the room. So this was another day that we were somewhere else to film. Ah, and here's my sister playing Sylvia in another form. Um, it was so fun. It was just a day that she did this, but she did a great job in this day, and she just had so much fun. And I explained to her kind of like the whole history of the character and what we were gonna do with her, and it was just a fun day of filming. And this was her ab lib to do that. Another thing I need to say, and this was all my sister. She kind of brought out all these props, and I looked through the props, and I was just trying to find out, well, what works, you know? This is my personal favorite one, but it was just that. It was us looking through everything and trying to see what worked and what didn't work. And, we slowly transition Max into the look he has. And so here, he's almost done. He's got the graphic tee, the dark jeans. He's looking more Max-like. The only thing that's missing, of course, is his jacket, which we will see at the end of the movie. Um, the idea of going into this pocket universe and making jokes about how similar it looks to this place. It was actually an afterthought. When I wrote this film, I was actually going to shoot it entirely at my parents' current house, which was really nice. It was a really nice place. And from the time I wrote this movie to the time we were going to start filming, my parents had actually moved out of that house, and I moved somewhere else. And all of a sudden, oh no, like, this is not like the location I intended to use. It just didn't work out, and it became clear that I need to do some rewrites. And so this was kind of my way of, oh, we're going to a pocket universe, and it looks very similar, and oh my God, did I just I don't know if you guys heard that. I accidentally activated one of my son's toys. That was really funny. Um, I'm keeping that because that's really funny. So here, this is me now at this point. This is me doing Sylvia's voice from this point of the movie to the end, and we do a couple of tricks and stuff. This effect, I had no idea how the hell that confetti stuff just didn't work. And look, oh my God, now we're in color. So a lot of cameos here. there's my son. We shot a lot of this is footage from Max 2. A lot of it is brand new footage that we shot. That I had a day where I invited some friends over, and yeah, we just kind of all mixed it all together. So here's the character of Adnan. I want to talk about this for a sec because this is really fun. So Adnan, which stands for a definitely new artificial nerd, was voiced by my friend Adnan Riaz. Adnan Riaz is a friend of mine that we met through working through a bunch of different gaming websites together and entertainment websites, and we co-hosted a podcast, several podcasts together. And at one point, for one of the websites we were working on, I was going to pitch a story idea. I wanted to do the first video series for the website, and it was going to be a... Oh, wait, I had to pause my story. Here is my friend Brian, reprising his role of Lewis from Roommates.
Oh, that's Lewis.
Lewis was a character that was in Roommates, and this is set in the year 2010, and that's around the time Lewis died in Roommates, this other movie I made, and so these are all dead people. I'm like, I had to stick Lewis in there. And then retroactively, I made it that he was in fact a drunk god. But Adnan came in and he was really great. I think this is Holta looking at Holta. Yeah, there's Holta looking at Holta. It's pretty funny. But it was really fun to do. We did a day of recording together, and it was a character I created for this video series we were gonna do, and it never got to happen. I don't think it ever will. At this point, that ship has sailed. But it was really cool. It was a fun character, and I said I'm gonna use this character in a movie one day, and the time came, and I decided to stick him into Drunk Max 3. And Adnan was kind enough to lend his voice for a day, and he's in the movie, and I'm very happy he's in the movie. It was a lot of fun to do. Okay, so let's talk about Holta here. Holta, my friend, I don't think I've ever really given him a major role in a movie. I started working with him as far back as 2006. That was the first time I directed him in a movie, and that was Schwarzenegger versus Stallone. He had a very small role in that movie. And we made a few movies after that together, but this was like the first real major role I had given him. And I just always thought of him, of Drunk Jack, being played by Holta from as far back as I can remember. I was just like, you know what? I think he's gonna play this character. I think it would be funny, to have him playing this like corrupt party guy. And Holta was, oh god, he did such a great job. He was very clear with how he wanted to play these two characters. These two versions of Jack, when he's sober, when he's drunk. And it was just so cool. Because I told him, I think he asked me at one point, so do you want me to wear a flannel shirt like Max? And I said, no, that's kind of Max's thing. I want you to do your thing. Because I feel like every drunk god would have, it's almost like being like the Doctor, Doctor Who. Like you have your own sense of style. It's all the same life force and the same party energy, but it's not the same thing. And each person has their own interpretation of it. And so Holta went with that and did just such a fucking great job with it. It was really awesome. We shot my close-ups here later in pickups, hence why my hair is significantly shorter. And it's very clear I'm holding the camera. It was my drunk self's decision to do this. Drinking for this movie, again, same kind of regimen I did in the first two movies. I think I used Jonas Curse. I would drink 3 shots. I would put 3 shots with Coke Zero or Pepsi Max. and that would be a drink, and I would have to basically drink a drink and a half, and I would be drunk enough to start making the movie. Sometimes I would have to keep drinking to, progress and make the character stay drunk or what have you. And that was, that was kind of like the regimen I did. I love that. We do our own stunts. So there is 4 drunk scenes. That's the first one. And then here we go back to black and white world. I want to talk about black and white for a second. Visually, the reason I did black and white was I wanted to have a big separation. I kept calling the drunk sequences like this film's equivalent of an IMAX sequence, you know? It's like every time we get drunk, we go colored, we, are being silly, and so I wanted to be less silly-ish and black and white and whatnot for the majority of this movie so that those colored scenes can stand out. Um, and I have been wanting to make a black and white movie for the longest time. Oh my god, I had been wanting to make one since at least like 2004, 5, something like that. And I had a few ideas that I never was able to implement it. I did a little bit of black and white in my movie The Essence of Us. There's a sequence that was in black and white, but I wanted to make a full movie, and I know there's a handful of scenes here that are not in black and white, but for the most part, this movie is almost entirely black and white. It's like 75% black and white, and it was really fun shooting it. I actually think my house looks. My wife was like, "I think the house looks prettier in black and white." And speaking of the house, oh my god, it's so crazy seeing because our house is vastly different than what you see here. This was a very long time ago, and so things are very different now. Um, I really love how our house looks now. I'm actually recording this downstairs because I don't have a game room anymore, so this is how it all is. Um, but oh gosh, where was I going with this? Here, this is a little factoid. So here we have Sylvia talking, and it's all nonsense noise and stuff. This was all an idea added in post. I took advantage of the fact that Max had voiceovers and stuff, and it was a means of meeting my deadline, so I didn't have to dub all this and make sure the lip syncing was correct. So I decided to add subtitle and to put all these random effects and stuff. I'm not sure if people really enjoyed the joke. Oh, here for this scene, I'm holding Sylvia in front of me. So I just looked at a puppet with dead eyes. So here we are back at the park. Yeah, we did a couple of days at the park in order to get all this stuff. Here again, we did the balcony trick for the close-ups. Again, just for better lighting. But the park was fun to do. It was just cool shooting outside, and we would walk our son. We would take him with us. Oh God, I miss my hair. And we would go through all the stuff here. This joke was always there from the beginning of me, walking in the park, taking out the thing, and getting the instructions. Again, this was in the balcony. Any close-up of anything, it just worked out better for lighting purposes. So that's what we did. But this is actually one of my favorite jokes in the movie. It's kind of silly, but I just find it funny because it's I don't know, it just reminds me of very slapstick, and we're shooting this in black and white. It's like almost goddamn vaudeville at this point with technology. So I love it. I get to break the fourth wall, and I thought it was really fun. Excuse me, I'm not sure how the scene went, but it was really cool. Now this effect I'm very disappointed with. I will be the first to say. I am very happy that I shot plate footage in for realsies. I just did not have a green screen, so I had to use a blue screen, and so my shirt became transparent. But I think the effect is pretty cool overall. I like how we transition to color, and it's like a fuzzy color. I gave Max like this fuzziness because it's supposed to be his essence that's coming out here. So here we have Max meeting one of the drunken councilmen for the first time. We only had one councilman come back, and this is the only scene he's in. I reprised the character. It was a lot of fun to do. Um, the councilmen, I just like playing them. They're so, I don't know, like almost borderline ancient evil. They have like this kind of like Star Warsian space creature feel to them when I play them. But I did a lot of green screen or blue screen in the second film, and for this movie, I knew I wasn't gonna do as much, but I knew this scene I had to. So I tried to use it at a minimum. I was gonna film myself, obviously standing in the background, but to achieve the effect of transitioning everything to space, I had to shoot myself as a blue screen element, and then comp myself in. Um, and I mean, look, I think for a no budget film, the effect looks kind of cool, but it it does look lame. I am definitely going to invest in a proper green screen in the near future, as to not have these problems. I think it's like essential to it. But yeah, it was fairly simple to shoot. I just trusted my wife to give me tips and whatnot if I was messing things up, and we just had to rely on blue screen and camera angles and things like that. And my wife, just like in the second film, she provided the voice um, of the drunken council leader when I was acting, because I can't really see, and I get really flustered because you get very hot in that suit when you start talking, and then you just get hot in general because you're covering your face with something that you're not really supposed to be covering your face with, because that's a hoodie backwards, and I put up the thing, and the stripes kind of just give it like a cool look. And so my wife was providing the voice, and I was doing the movement. She does that a lot for me for a lot of stuff, and she's gotten really good at it over the years. And so I just dubbed it in post, and I think it came out for what it is. I think it came out really great. The next time I use blue screen or green screen, um, I'm definitely hoping I have more professional equipment, and I'm definitely hoping it comes out good. But I'm okay with it. I think it gets the point across, and everything's fine. And then here we transition back into the world, and see, now we're not green screen anymore. That's a reference to Max 1, the big booty bitches. I like to think the idea that Max, even though that song was not out in 2010, whatever, it's magic powers. But I'd like to imagine Max remember that song and use his powers. So this whole idea of Max being attracted to Broomhilda, I really wanted their love to come from a very pure place, and I really wanted to come from a very pure place, and for this to kind of end, that we know where it's heading, and we know we know that things get better, but things have to get worse. And I wanted this film to kind of explain why, because Hilda remembers all this. She remembers what she did during this time, despite her status of thinking she's a child. Um, and so it's just a fun montage that shows their love for each other. This was uh, the regular popcorn. That was because you couldn't really tell it was caramel popcorn because of the black and white. So I just thought, fuck it, I'll just put the subtitles explaining what it is. I think it kind of had like a cool effect to it. And the music was very different originally, and I thought this was way more upbeat. And of course, got some Wham, because why not? But that's actually the Wham and the slow dancing. I have an extremely old memory of my mom dancing with a friend of hers to that song, and I just remember it being so silly. And so that was kind of like a tribute to that. As silly as that sounds. So let's talk about this scene. So when I told my wife, you're not gonna talk. I did tell her, and this is actually probably my favorite scene of the whole trilogy with Max and Broomhilda. I think it's just such a cute scene, and I think my wife does such a great job acting here. With her expressions and just, it's just a really cute scene. And it ends, of course, grotesque because it's me, but it is really pretty. I think it's really pretty, and I hope to do more things like that in the future. Um, but the lick kiss here. Um, when I told my wife, "You're gonna have to lick my lips," and this whole thing, she was okay with it, but she also was very much like just she thought the idea of doing that on camera was gonna look so weird, and she just did such a great job that I was like, "No, you did great," but she did veto drooling. She's like, "I'll lick your face, but I'm not gonna drool." And I'm like, "All right." So the scene of her drooling, she just made a really goofy face, no drool. So Max going back into, these worlds and him going back into the the world of Jack and visiting him and coming up with all this. It was my excuse of having silly drunk scenes, but also I did want it to kind of be something for Max, something for him to get to know this guy, and that's why I invented the idea of him being able to go in there two more times because of the drunk council. Um, and him texting him here, I thought was just delightful. Um, I thought it was just really great. Those texts were sent to my wife. I told her I'm gonna send you text messages that make no sense, and if you pause them, there's like a bit of history behind them. I made sure to add like some random history, like with Sylvia's text. It's something like Max is like, I don't understand how this phone works, and she's like, just follow the GPS or something. Like I wrote a bit of text backstory that you don't get to see really in the film, but I just thought it was really funny to do for this, and I did the same thing for the drunken council leader. So Adnan comes back again. He always greets me every time I return to Jack's world, or he's always there. This is the second greeting. He has one more scene at the end, but yeah, it was really fun again to do Adnan. Holta brought the Kahlua because he wanted to be drunk for the scenes also, so he brought his own stuff. I think he wanted to channel the dude, so he made some White Russians, and I was like, oh my god, so he brought some milk and some Kahlua, and we just had fun. I made the Jello shots. They're not really Jello shots, they're just Jello. I made that for the movie, and we bought the little tiny cups. And I just put like little Jello pieces in it.
More Jello shots. Fuck yeah.
I think it was one of the longest shots in the movie, and we're just reading the script because we were extremely wasted at this point. And it became a tradition. It was another shot we used earlier in the movie of Javon and
So Jack, this was my first question.
sorry, I got distracted of Javon and Josh, who come back into the movie several times. It was actually my wife's suggestion to use that shot again. She helped me. She didn't help me edit this, but she did. Well, she did. I showed her. Let me explain that for a bit. I had done Max number 2, and this is a flip shot, and I hate. It's like very obviously a flip shot. I had done Max number 2, and when I did Max number 2, I was a little bit disappointed with the final outcome. Because what happened was I released Max 1. This is a tribute to Family Guy, by the way. When Peter's dancing. I had done Max 1, and we had done. I was very pleased with how it turned out after the reception it got. I was very nervous about the movie going out, and I kind of became blindly love the little joke with the cup Volta does, but I was very blindly positive about Max 2, and having seen, I released the movie, and I think just structurally it's a goddamn mess. It's like really bad, and I put a little bit of powder, and Alta's like, no, put more. I was like, really? He's like, put more flour. This is gonna be hilarious. And I love the way the scene turns out. So when I released the second film, I was really disappointed after the fact of just how lame it kind of was. I don't know. I just feel like the editing wasn't as good as it could have been, and so when I was making this film, I was extremely more open-minded to editing stuff, and it became one of the first movies where I really cut significant portions of the film out. I think the first cut of the movie was around an hour and 30 minutes, and we cut about 15 minutes from the movie. And it's not really anything interesting, I don't think. It's a lot of it is just stuff that really lingers and really like just didn't really, go with the flow of the movie. And I was going to actually save it as a deleted scene thing, and I accidentally deleted them permanently, so that won't happen. But it's not really a lot that one is missing. I mean, I don't know, maybe in a future release or something I'll put it in for like an anniversary or something, I don't know. This shot is sped up because when we were filming it, it was very funny. And then when I was editing it, I'm like, it's funny, but it's very slow. And so I sped it up, and I think it's actually really funny sped up. It's funnier sped up, in my opinion, because I think it's obvious it's sped up because of like the way Hota acted it. But it like works, if that makes any sense. It's kind of hard to explain. Yeah, so here we are back in black and white world. A lot of these things, this is kind of like the split up between Max and the Sylvia home. And it was just, it was a means of putting Max at this odd place. I tried my best to do this in the film, and I hope it comes across this way, but the way I played Max in this film, before this film, he just was obsessed with the idea of party gods and drunk gods and where to find them. He had heard rumors and legends and all this, and it's not until he actually meets one that he's trying to ignore the negative stuff of this character. He tries to just say, no, there has to be a means to an end with what he's doing. And in actuality, if you're not fond of the person, you realize, oh my god, no, actually what they're doing is terrible. And it's not until the very, 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 very end that Max realizes that, and that's why he decides to do what he does. And here, we cut a little bit here. This is another section of the movie we trimmed. This conversation with Sylvia and Jack, Max, went on a lot longer, and it didn't make sense. There's some parts of it that my wife were like, why are you, like, it was either repeating information or, I don't know, it just didn't really make any sense. And that toy my wife is playing with, that was, I could tell you we definitely filmed this in 2017 because that was a Christmas gift my son got from his grandfather on Christmas 2016. So, oh my god, and you see those microwaves? Yeah. Oh, like, a lot of shit happened around this time. That was that one of our microwaves broke, and then my parents were like, here, take our microwave. We got a new one, and this one's really good. And then that one broke, and then we had to get another microwave. So it was just ridiculous. We had like 2 microwaves for the longest time. So, I want to point out the music here. The music is entirely 80s. Why did I do that? It was an accident. I didn't intend to, but it just seemed fun to do. Like, a lot of the music was 80s, and then at the end, with the exception of Barbie Girl, everything is 80s. And it wasn't entirely intentional until, the editing of it. So here we have Rico Jeremiah Ropa. That is obviously a fake shotgun.
What?
Rico, I knew he was gonna be in this movie, and I wanted this to be. I know they're family, but I wanted this to be, something that like they really became closer in this movie. And
All I wanted to do was meet a drunk cop.
I really like this scene a lot, actually. Again, we got to shoot somewhere else. I think the sound is really nice because we're in a car. The joke here, we make it very clear that it's a sock puppet. And I just think that's it's so funny. I actually would love to make a Rico film one day, but I just don't think you can make a Rico Ropa film without having a huge budget.
How the hell did you know that? Her maiden name Ropa?
Like, the joke would be you would have to do really amazing stuff and get away with the fact that it's a sock puppet. Like, ultimately you're just looking at a sock puppet and there's not really a whole lot aside from that happening. And so I don't think it'll ever happen, but oh my gosh, if I ever get a budget, that would be one of the ideas I would put on the table and see what I could do. Who knows, maybe in the future, like, you could do things a lot cheaper than you can now, and I can do something like that. Hugging my arm like that in that shot was very funny, but I think it just looks really funny. But it was very odd to do, but I'm glad it gave off the effect. Rico, yeah, this is kind of the earliest we see him. I actually repainted his eyes. It's the same sock puppet as Max 1 and 2, but I repainted his eyes because it had faded through use of Max 1 and 2, and I just thought, well, it's a prequel. He's younger. So I painted it darker to kind of like give him more of a thing. He's one of my favorite characters. I think really when he comes in the end, that was always my intention, was to come in and do like a third thing, a third act kind of thing. Oh, when I started telling the story there, I went on for a few seconds more, like I think like 20 more seconds, or 10 more seconds. I told a lot of like the partial story. So this scene in particular, boy, let me tell you about filming this movie in general. So as I said, when I wrote this movie, I had written this movie while we were shooting Drunk Max 2. And so I had it fully written, and then we edited. When we were done filming Max 2, my wife became pregnant. And so we edited Max 2, we released it, and I knew I was going to have to delay Max 3 because there was just no way that I was going to be able to film a movie. My wife was pregnant, and it just wouldn't have made any sense. And plus, I really wanted to focus, obviously, on getting everything ready for my son, and I didn't want my wife to have to do such laborious things while she was with a belly. I love making movies, but my family, without question, comes first. And so when we got around to filming this, we had a baby. and our son Jack was at least 3 months old, 4 months old when we started filming, and it was very difficult. Specifically, this scene there, you could see his crib actually right next to me, or not his crib, his car seat next to me. Filming him, it was hard. Or not filming him, but just being with him. I mean, he cried a lot. I would have a perfect take, and he would cry near the end, and it was very frustrating. But we went through it, and we did it, and I think it came out cool. So I'm satisfied with it. This scene was an entirely. We kind of rewrote this. We had cut a lot of the beginning of this originally. I was going to come back. I was going to talk to. We had filmed it too, but I talked to Sylvia and Rico, and I get into an argument, and I go upstairs to visit Rebecca and Broomhilda, I mean, and talk to her. And when we were watching the movie, my wife was like, "It's kind of redundant because Max, nothing happens in this scene." Because in the beginning of the next scene, they're still at odds with each other, and then Max finally decides to change things. And so I added in that quick voiceover of how Rico was kind of distracting her, and I think it plays out funnier because then when we cut to them, they're making a dick joke, and it's just really funny. It just sets up, a lot of the stuff that happens later. So I think it's actually better this way. So here we return to color, and Broomhilda has a moment of clarity. You'll notice she doesn't speak in an accent. This is done purposely. I told my wife, you don't have to speak in an accent, because there's something that we're gonna see, which hopefully if I did this digital release correctly, you guys are watching it. But we made the short film with Max and Broomhilda, and it kind of explains, like, Max just really wanted her to talk in a foreign accent. He thought it was hot, and so, poor Broomhilda, in the years of their marriage near the end, really tried to please Max in so many ways, and he's just a fucking idiot. He was pun intended, drunk with power. But here, again, the ultimate thing of future Max manipulating time and space. It's a grandfather paradox thing. Future Max manipulates this moment to give past Max the courage to, or the push he needed, the spark to keep going forward with his mission. And, of course, that leads to him becoming Drunk Max. So that was really cool. Here we're entering the third act of the film, and really the end of the second act, really. And when we were making this, it was clear to me that once Max decides, okay, I'm gonna try to do this, that he needed. I wanted to make it look like Max might have a chance against the drunk god, and I wasn't quite sure how to do that. And the idea came with the title prop of the movie, the first six-pack, and that came as an accident. The title came first. The idea was, in this film, Max would drink an entire six-pack by himself. It's a joke. It's like the first six-pack, like and it didn't really work, because I'm like, I don't buy for 1 second that Max is in his 20s and he had never drank a six-pack of beer. I don't buy that, especially since he's so interested in drunk gods. But I really wanted to keep the subtitle, and so that's when I came up with the idea, well, what if instead it's that Max has he has to compete this overwhelming, he has to go above these odds. And so we had like a really great sequence, I think, that we shot here a moment ago, and it was always Scott Baio, and the Scott Baio thing is an homage to Orgasmo, where one of the and the character Sancho is just really into the idea of like at one point he's like I am better than Scott Baio or something like that. Oh my gosh, something fell in the background. That was spooky. I'll have to check that out later. I had something fall in my kitchen in the middle of recording. Oh my. So it was my attempt at homaging that. And yeah, that I think it was. I don't know. I found it a funny homage. And here we are. I give pure credit to my wife for making that the first 6-pack. She, I think, did a great job with that prop. It was very simple of an idea. It's actually, I think, I want to say it's Sam Adams. I think it's like the Winter Lager. Because we actually, not this part, that I think is just water. I saved the stuff, but here the first 6-pack sequence, it became a colored well, not a colored sequence, but we made it really trippy. And I did that because I wanted the effects of, so see, we lit it in a way that's really weird. You get a lot of shadowing and stuff. And here this paper just glows almost against like that's a couch background you can hardly see. And the idea was, he's like, Max is like in this alternate thing, this alternate world almost in his head, and so the colors are different. He's tripping out over the power of this stuff. This was actually one of the first shots we did for the film. It's definitely the first drunk shot we did, and I think it was in December. And again, this was something we cut a lot because the scene just went on and on and on and on and on. And when my wife and I were watching it, she was consulting me, and she would tell me, like, yeah, this is kind of like going on, and you should really trim it out. So that was another thing. There was a lot of dialogue here that we cut, and it just wasn't funny, number one, and number two, it went nowhere. And I realized they just need to have a short conversation, and then we get into the silly montage, and it definitely worked out a lot better that way. And of course, I'm doing the Scott Baio. I don't think Scott Baio sounds anything like that, but I just wanted to do just a weird accent that doesn't really sound like who this guy is. I don't know. To me, I think that's very funny. And I'm glad it came out that way. I don't know if I drank. I think I definitely drank Jonas Curtis. This was one of the days I got really drunk because I drank Jonas Curtis, and then I also drank at least a beer and a half or 2 beers or something on top of that. And what's the thing? Liquor before beer, you're in the clear? I don't know. We did a pickup here of me grabbing a shit scene. It's like in all the Max movies except the first, we always have a shit scene. This was a pickup shot of me getting the beers, because I realized I really need to show progression of Max kind of going through the stuff. It didn't really come off that way. Me drunk and burning that, I was so cautious of of that. And I remember I was telling my wife, you have to help me, please. Just make sure I don't burn down the house. She's like, honey, you're going to be fine. I'm like, that was my wife's idea, to lay down next to the shit. My dog had taken a crap in the kitchen. And I'm like, okay, I was really drunk. And I'm like, I need to pass out now. And she's like, do it next to the shit. And I'm like, I love you. And so that's what I did. We reused this shot because we'd actually lost some footage. Of me waking up. It works. I mean, I'm wearing the same stuff. Scott Baio. This was shot months later. It was the same. I saved that same paper, the wet and burned paper. I saved it and I let it dry out. Now that shot was really interesting how we did it. That was another. I really like that day of filming, and this is just perfect. It's like such a shitty thing. The script called for a really crappy makeshift tombstone, and that's what I came up with. This is such a silly shot here of me with my arms. I'm just behind my wife. But the shot of me yelling and the camera going up, I had gotten a tripod. I put it on a table. I pointed it down, had it fully zoomed out, and then digitally zoomed in, and then did a digital zoom out, and it came out great. I think it really looked cool. Stuff like that we would do while we were filming. And so this is it. This is pretty much the ending of the movie, the beginning of the end, with the big pep talk here. I really wanted Scott Baio, by the way, dying. Originally, it wasn't Scott Baio. It was another character that called Dorman Hammer that we ended up cutting from the movie. It was an entire character that we had cut. And it just didn't make sense to have Dorman Hammer, so we cut him. And look at the Christmas tree in the background. You can tell when we shot this. This is one of the first couple of scenes we shot. And so, oh, and here, but we had cut him, and so his death was supposed to be like, oh wow, Max is finally doing it, that kind of thing. So here we finally have the flannel, which Max wears in, of course, the Max trilogy. And so here we go with this final thing. Max's outfit is complete, and he becomes more or less drunk Max. I mean, at this point, all he's missing is the final thing. It was so cool wearing that, by the way. Being partial Max throughout the whole movie was always very weird, and then putting that on for the final time, it was fun. I just really enjoyed having the whole thing. So here, this was the first stuff I shot with Holta. We shot all of his stuff in one day, and this was again Holta's idea of. I told him instead of drinking beer, I want you to drink water. And the idea is it's almost like he's constantly sobering up. You know, he needs to be drinking something. And since he's sober here, you know, he's doing that. This was all Holta's idea, though, of like the messy hair is now neat and slicked back. And, you know, the glasses, the bow tie, but there's still some silliness because the shorts have like little sharks on them, I think. And again, Holta just knocked it out. I really wish we could have shaved him a little bit, like had his stubble be gone, but we had to shoot this a particular way, so it didn't really make sense to do that. But it works. It was still really great. The idea of the 3 challenges, I wanted a big face-off against them, something that like a tournament almost, and oh, and that shot, snap my fingers, and you go into a burning building. I had written that because I wanted it to be that Max gets the idea to do that. I have a series called Retrospectives Be Damned, and Max makes a quick cameo in or not a cameo. He's made, I think, 2 appearances on the show, most recently this year actually, and so that idea, Max does that. He does snap his fingers and send someone to a burning building, and that came from this. From doing this. Max is actually one of my favorite characters I've ever played, probably because of the drunk part, but I just thought it was really funny. It was just great to play. So here I had done this. I purposely fucked up the challenge 1 because I just thought he did this while he was drunk one day. And it's just really shitty. I'd gotten 6 pieces of paper, it looks like, and I just taped them all together. This was an ad-lib by Holta, and it was great. He just couldn't do it. And then, of course, Javon's back. It's Javon and Brian and my wife. Oh, and then here, of course, here we have the finale that Brian had done. The joke, the small, medium, at large. I just thought, I wasn't sure if that joke would work, that Lewis tells a joke at the beginning and then that joke gets, repeated at the end, but I figured, fuck it. If anyone can do it, it's Brian. That's just great seeing him play Lewis again. Just bringing that character back, these legacy characters. This was really fun to shoot. I always knew it was going to be this song. It was from the movie Euro Trip, and and here, just the fact that they're talking and they just do not give a shit of what's going on. We have obviously shot all that later. That was another day, so I was very careful with my shots here. I'm showing the fart sounds. That was just something we came up with later, and I thought it was just funny to have like silly fart things. Holta was like, I can't really dance, man, but I'll do the best I can. And I said, dude, just the song is gonna be funny, and we're gonna do these silly shots of your feet, and just be silly and make it. And I love how he made it seem just so like, what's the word? Like he's just so confident, and there's not much going on. It's just me moving the camera around a lot, and then when Max does his thing, oh my god, we shot this like weeks later. We had actually just came back from a party, and I went downstairs with the camera and I just quickly shot this, and my wife was upstairs with her son, because it was such a quick shot. And I was so tired. We had just spent the whole day sweating, just our asses off, and I just put on the Max outfit and then quickly went downstairs and shot that, and I think it works out. I love Lewis's little thing here where he's like, I don't know about that. And when Brian did that, I told him, dude, that was magic, because when you did that facial expression, I'm like, oh my god, he's Lewis. And we had, it had been 7 years since we had seen Lewis and stuff, and it was a very special moment. It was just really fun to do, and I can't say that character will come back again. I think this was just a right time at the right moment. We're all getting older. The thing is, me and Brian and everyone, we're getting really old, and so doing we're in our 30s. We're in our 30s now, and doing a character we played in our early 20s, it's just, I don't think it's going to flow anymore. Especially considering it's a character that died, so they're supposed to retain that kind of, version of themselves. But I said, fuck it, why not? It just made sense to do, and retconning him into being the drunk god before Drunk Jack, it was just cool to have this scene where we have, the that's so bright. Having the past drunk god, having the current drunk god, and the future drunk god in one shot. It was really, or not one shot, but one sequence. It was really fun to do. A few years ago. And I almost cut Lewis. I became obsessed. Almost. It was, again, we were cutting the movie, and I had almost cut him. Because it just didn't make sense again to like the scene. It was the scene right before I met Jack, and I had put a temp cut in the movie where I did like a voiceover, and my wife and I both agreed, like, it's almost like we're holding back. Like I say, oh, where's Jack? And Adam's like, oh, he's over there. And then I go over there, and then I bump into Lewis, and I have another conversation, and then I finally go over, and there's not a sense of anticipation. There's a sense of like, come on. And I think in the script I wrote it as a sense of anticipation, but then once you act it really felt more like, can we just meet him already? Like that kind of thing. And so that's when I came up with an idea, because I didn't want to cut Brian. I really didn't want to. Because I always want him and Holta in my movies. It's like, I love them. They're my brothers, and it's almost like an unofficial good luck charm. And so I really thought long and hard, and I came up with the idea of him doing the joke. And I even told Brian when we were filming, dude, I don't know if this is gonna work. And this is what I love about, Brian. We've done so many movies together, and I said that to him, and he just says, "Fuck it, man. Let's just do it. Let's see what we could do. Let's give it a shot." And I love that. That is like the best thing you could ask for anyone when you're doing something creative. Is not like, "Oh, I hope it works too," or something like that. It's just them being so positive and just saying like, "Let's do this. Let's knock it out." And I think it worked. I really do think it does, because Brian is just such a highlight that I think you do remember that. And so when you get the joke at the end, it's like, what, and plus I think it's good for re-watching value, because then you go back and you see that and you're like, oh. So I'm speaking all over my big speech here. I really tried. I hope it came across good. But the idea of using the music, again, not 80s music, one of the rare times it happens. I shot part of the speech with Holta. I knew there were certain angles I wanted Holta in. I love this. They're so great. That was a pickup we did, and they were just so lovely. I really told them this is key to what I just said, so please, guys, just give me your all. And all three, Javon, Brian, and Rebecca, did such a great job.
That's right, Turd Blossom. The dick's in the asshole now.
So I did shoot that separately. Me going, oh, that was shot like on another day of filming when I was not drunk. And then, of course, when he snaps, we're all wasted. And it was just that one shot that we shot on another day. So it was really funny doing all this stuff. And of course, we go back to Jack in his natural form, of course, because that's just the way it has to be. And I had to slow down Adnan's voice there because it just didn't match with the amount of time. And that was my bad, not his.
Look, man,
when Adnan read that line, he started cracking up. He's like, "You want me to quote Bane?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay." It was really funny. He just really thought, "Oh my God, let's do this." It was really funny.
I always thought drunk guys
and that's just pure drunk Chris dialogue. Here we are, drunkenly reading our shots, our stuff. This is again the same day we shot everything with Holta. We shot and that was partially one of the reasons why I shot a lot of my stuff later, was that we their thing. So here, this shot, I had forgotten. I was so drunk, I forgot to ask Holta to do this. And at first, I'm like, maybe I can do a quick shot. But then I just said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna slow it down and have future Chris narrate it. And again, it was so convenient to do that. Like, having future Chris narrate just became like the go-to thing, and he starts becoming a character of himself, which I think is great. You could see my wife in the reflection of the TV there holding her baby, and that was because, again, working on this with my son was very hard. And so whenever I had a chance to have a break or anything like that, or like whenever my wife could do something like that and give us a break in filming, I'd be like, "Oh, honey, please." And I have to, you know what? Actually, let me go on the record to say, my wife was instrumental in this movie. I mean, if it was not for her, this movie would not have been made. We were both new parents, and it was extremely scary. And so, it was something that I was so happy that she helped me with this, and it's something I'll always appreciate. And of course, this is the reference to later on in Max 2, and he's like, "Strudel, not again," because this is the first time Max sees it. So he falls for the same trick later in the second film. So that was a callback to that. I don't know why I kept doing Dr. Evil, but I did. And It was just really funny. And this is Max 2 footage. That I reused because I just was really tired of shooting party scenes, and so I tried to do the minimum I could, and it kind of worked. I don't know. And so here we have a couple of wrap-up stuff. Max is officially a drunk god. So this is it. This is finally Max. It's, you know, see, he's already using his powers.
Your name is Nicole now.
And so here we wrap things up. This was a major pickup shot. My wife had actually cut her hair, and she was concerned about how it would all look. My sister being the title character of Party Animal, that was always in the cards, that Max alters time and space and makes her the character that is in Party Animal, but also is the character that slaps Max in the first film. So it's kind of like a nice little callback to the first film. And then, of course, Broomhild is back to normal, and he agrees to, or he asks her to marry, and she agrees. And this begins kind of like the arc that we see, there's the short film kind of like takes it from that point, but we get hints of it here in this movie. And then here, the Poop Baron and the Beer Baron, but we have to wait 5 years. Again, just wanted to kind of like shit on that idea, because I thought it's just funny to see where these guys are going, and or you know where these guys are going, and it's just really great. Just talking to my wife. This shot really meant a lot to me. To me, this was the clearing the lockers scene. It really just brought finality, and I used the Final Fantasy X song because it just reminded me of it. It was just really cool editing this together and reflecting back at making, you know, these 3 movies, and just it meant a lot to me. It was fun. It was a nice little vacation from stuff, and having done the 3 movies, it's definitely everything's definitely wrapped up. I don't feel like there's really anything else to do with Max. There was an idea I had for a brief hot second. I had an idea of doing a second trilogy of Max 4, 5, and 6, and while we were filming this, it was like very clear, nah, man, don't do any more. 3 is already enough. You're insane to keep going with more. Like, if you do, it's really just, you're going to become the guy who makes the drunk movies. And so that idea, that concept of doing a second Max trilogy became the Family trilogy, which hopefully you guys, it's out already, but the first film, the Family Edition, we made, and we're going to make 2 more, and I'm happy it turned out to be that way, because it definitely makes a lot more sense. So to wrap things up here with the commentary, Drunk Max 3 was just so fun to do. I hadn't done a movie series in a very long time, not since the Essence films, that I was able to tell a complete story from beginning to end that I wanted to do. So being able to work on Drunk Max and tell the story, and be able to give a clear-cut beginning, middle, and end. Here you see Drunk Baby Handler. I gave my wife that title because she definitely did handle both me when I was drunk and our child, and I really appreciated that. But it was fun. It was cool, and I'm very happy I got to tell this complete story of this character. And will Max make future appearances? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I know he's made already 2 appearances in Retrospectives Be Damned. There's no plans ever to do another movie, but you know, who knows? Maybe in the future, you know, his kids. Something's got to be done about his kids. Maybe we'll do something with that if my kids are down. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching the Max trilogy, or for listening to this commentary. I hope you guys enjoy them. My intention was always to make fun party movies, and I think I've made a trilogy that accomplishes that. But alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and be on the lookout for future movies and projects. Take care, guys.